Welcome into Back of the Net. It has been a little while since we've done one of these, and that's completely my fault, but we're back. We are back to our usual routine. We will be looking at this whole weekend. A lot of football going on this weekend. We'll be taking a look at that, and then we'll be back on Monday to recap all of it. Like we usually do, Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie, all going to be previewed right here. But before we even get to those, there is a major news story that came out in the football world. It came out on Wednesday. Thought about doing a show on Wednesday just to quickly cover it, but kind of wanted to ruminate the thoughts and see if any more details came out about it before doing a show. I figured I'll just throw it on Friday's show and we'll start out with it. So on Wednesday morning here in the US, just kind of out of the blue, no real announcement of an announcement coming or anything like that, the 2030 FIFA World Cup hosts have been announced. And I'm going to sound like LeBron James here, circa 2010 Miami Heat introductory press conference. They're not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but we have 6 hosts for the 2030 World Cup. Yes, 6 nations will be sharing hosting duties for this World Cup. 3 of them are on one side of the Atlantic Ocean. 3 of them are on the exact opposite side of the Atlantic Ocean. Now, what are these countries you're talking about if you haven't seen the news? Well, the countries are Spain, Portugal, Morocco, Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay. Now, I should throw in some details here, so you don't think it's an intercontinental World Cup, even though it is. Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay, or Paraguay, whatever. They will, all 3 of those countries, already qualified for that World Cup. They will be hosting 1 match each. They will each host an opening match, as this would be the 100th anniversary of the first World Cup that was held in Uruguay. So they will be hosting 1 game each, and then all the games will then partake from Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. What are we doing? I mean, what are we doing? I don't even know where to start here. But let's just start with the logistics of this 1 game for each team. So it's a 48-team World Cup. You're going to have 6 total teams, obviously. You're going to be playing a game in South America. And then you're going to have them play that 1 game, then travel to a whole nother continent to play the rest of their games. And you don't think that's going to put those teams at a significant disadvantage compared to the teams that will just be in Spain, Portugal, and Morocco the whole time? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? 2030 was supposed to be the year that it was supposed to be Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay, and then Chile all hosting together to do a celebration of football, given that it was the 100th anniversary. And this feels like a slap in the face to all of South America that they're now hosting 3 total games for this Centennial World Cup. And the rest of them are being hosted in Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. It's absolutely despicable what FIFA have done here. I don't get why we couldn't have done South America 2030, then we do Spain, Portugal, Morocco 2034, and then we figure out 2038 down the road. And I'm going to get to 2034 in a minute because it's clearly already decided who's going to be hosting. This is going to... I already think 2026 is going to be a disaster with 3 nations hosting it. 6 nations hosting a World Cup is absolutely mind-boggling. And the fact that FIFA is doing it, I'm honestly not surprised because it's FIFA. But it's absolutely stupid that they're doing it this way, especially. Now, it's going to end up being that Spain is going to most likely be playing the roles that the U.S. is playing in the 2026 World Cup, where most of it's going to be held in Spain. Portugal and Morocco are going to get thrown a few games, a decent amount, but once you get to the knockout stages, it's basically going to be Spain all the way through, is my understanding of it. Why are we doing this? Like, this is the most backwards thing I've ever seen. I'm just, like I said, I'm not surprised because it's FIFA. This is 100% something FIFA would do. Also, remember when, that whole corruption thing happened with Qatar and Russia? And how it was only a select council voting on who hosted. And then they decided for 2026, we're going to open it up so that every nation is represented in this. And they're going to vote and we'll decide from there. Where was the vote for this? This just came completely out of the blue. And it was just like, okay, 2030's been decided. Like, why are we doing this? I don't know. This is the most backwards thing I've ever seen. And then let's move on. So 2034, they announced bidding is open for 2034 after this, shock announcement of the host of 2030. So the way that FIFA goes, a nation or a confederation can't host consecutive World Cups. They can't host 2 out of 3, I think it is, or something like that. So, obviously 2026, CONCACAF is hosting. So, CONCACAF can't host 2030 and 2034. 2030, technically UEFA, CAF, and CONMEBOL are hosting. So, that's 3 federations right there. So they can't host 2034 and 2038. Who does that leave for 2034? That leaves Asia and Oceania. Oceania has like 7 confederations, and the biggest one's New Zealand. And they had to co-host a Women's World Cup with Australia. That's how small they are. Asia. Who do we have in Asia? That's right. We have Saudi Arabia, who are spending billions and billions of dollars on their pro league, getting all these older players from Europe and bringing them to their league to bring them credibility. What nation announced that they were bidding just mere hours after FIFA announced that bidding was open for 2034? That's right, Saudi Arabia. Mark my words right now. Saudi Arabia will either be unopposed or it's going to be run up against Australia. Saudi Arabia is getting 2034. There is no doubt about it. And the funny thing is, what do these next 2 World Cups have in common? You have 3+ nations hosting it. Guess what? For 2034, it's just going to be Saudi Arabia. Just like in 2022 when it was just Qatar. What are we doing? It's so clear what is happening here. And the fact that other people are picking up on it, I'm glad to see because, I see this from a mile away, but other people don't. This was clearly coordinated so FIFA can just walk back into the Middle East in 2034. You don't do this jumbled mess that 2030 is and just act like it's okay. That's the reason why Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay got a game each. So then it could say CONMEBOL has hosted. And they don't get an actual bid to go up against Saudi Arabia in 2034. The World Cup will be in Saudi Arabia in 2034, and we'll have to accept it whether we like it or not. It's absolutely stupid that most likely we'll have to play another Winter World Cup, which I thought that was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I'm sure it's going to be every 12 years now. They're just going to alternate all those countries. Oh, so what? That would be 2046? Sure, we'll host it in, I don't know, the UAE. We'll go back to Qatar. Why not? Absolutely shameless what FIFA is doing. I'm not surprised by this at all. Like I said, 2030 is an absolute jumbled mess. 2034 is a disaster waiting to happen. And we thought changes were going to happen in FIFA. They're not. Gianni Infantino is no different than Sepp Blatter. They really aren't. None at all. You know, they can say football is for the fans. It's not. It's for the money. Let's be honest here. It always has been. It always will be. So given that was a nice little rant on what FIFA is trying to do here, because this is absolutely ludicrous, but let's move on to just what's going on this weekend. I know that's what you're here for. You're here for your weekend preview, and let's deliver on that. So first, let's go to the Premier League, as we always do. Saturday, kicking it off. That 12:30 kickoff in the UK, 7:30 a.m. here in the Eastern time zone of the United States. You have Luton Town hosting Tottenham. This very much a game that Tottenham will find a way to lose 1-0 because that's the way things go. One of the two unbeaten teams left in the Premier League right now. This is 100% a game I'm worried about because Tottenham, like I said, find a way to lose these games. That is the Tottenham curse there. Luton Town like that, like low block, high cross football that Tottenham just absolutely despise playing now. I want to say that they're going to roll them, but Tottenham will find a way to lose this game 1-0, honestly. They will find a way to lose this game 1-0. Moving on, we got that 10 o'clock window, so 3 p.m. window in England. You have Burnley facing off against Chelsea. Chelsea finally got a win out of nowhere last week. Burnley, I believe, also got their first win of the season. So we'll see if Vincent Kompany's men can get a victory against Chelsea. I doubt it, but I could see a draw happening, possibly. You have Everton, a team that these two teams, this already, I've said this like 3 times this season about Everton games. This feels like a relegation 6-pointer already. As Everton face off against Bournemouth. Everton, I feel like, need to get the 3 points here. Draw's not helping either team. Fulham face off against what looks to be right now terrible Sheffield United team. Obviously, I mean, Fulham should get the win here, but I feel like Fulham can also just find a way to lose these games. And a just stuttering Manchester United team that just seems in disarray right now. Can't get anything right. They face off against Brentford. Could be a real tough test for them. Obviously, we remember the beginning of last year when Brentford thrashed them at home 4-0. Not expecting a 4-0 scoreline again, but I wouldn't be surprised if Brentford somehow pull off an upset. And then in the 12:30 game, so the 5:30 game in England, it is Crystal Palace hosting Nottingham Forest. I mean, that should be a pretty entertaining game. Those are two mid-table squads that I believe will be fighting each other for positions near the end of the season. So should be interesting to see what happens there. Moving on to Sunday, You have Brighton and Hove Albion facing off against the Liverpool team that's still looking for a replay of last week, which, whatever. Go watch Match of the Day if you want a replay. Brighton coming off a draw in Europe in Marseille on Thursday. Liverpool coming off a victory at home against Union Saint-Gilloise. Brighton haven't looked good in the past few games in the Premier League, which kind of worries me about this game. I feel like Liverpool have a bone to pick kind of with the league, so I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of go out and try to put up 3 or 4 in this game. West Ham United face off against Newcastle. Obviously, Newcastle coming off that huge victory in the Champions League against PSG at home. They traveled down to London to face off against the team that has England's longest European unbeaten run, which is West Ham United. I believe they're at 16 or 17 unbeaten right now. That is the longest of all time in English football history. Then you have a Wolves team facing off against an Aston Villa team that got a win in Europe this weekend. And then you get to the big game of the weekend, the 4:30 kickoff in England, 11:30 here in the US. It is Arsenal. It is Manchester City. Obviously, Manchester City is down Rodri because of the red card. Arsenal might be down Saka because of an injury. Arsenal coming off a loss in the Champions League against Lens. Manchester City coming off a win against RB Leipzig. Both were on the road in the Champions League. So I still think City find a way to win this game. So moving on from the Premier League, we'll move down to Spain as we always do in La Liga. We already had a game today. It was Bilbao getting a 3-0 win against Almeria. Moving on to Saturday, you have Cádiz hosting Granollers. Granollers still a good start to the season for them. We'll see if they can continue on. Obviously, they've lost the top spot that they had for about a week, but you move on to Real Madrid facing off against Osasuna. Obviously, Jude Bellingham having an absolutely fantastic start to the season. Will be interesting to see how he continues that, because he always finds a way in each game that he plays to make that beginning of the season even better for Real Madrid and just look like an absolute steal of a signing to start the season. Then you move down to Mallorca. They're hosting against Valencia. And then in the 3 o'clock game, you have Sevilla hosting off against Rayo Vallecano. Sevilla still, it's been a very rough start for them to start the season. Am I worried about them yet? Yeah, kind of, but they kind of had this season last year, so I'm kind of not surprised by this at all. Moving on to Sunday, it's a 5-game slate on Sunday. You have Villarreal hosting off against Las Palmas. A very intriguing game between Atlético Madrid and Real Sociedad. That should be real entertainment right there. Celta Vigo hosting off against Getafe. Deportivo Alaves facing off against Real Betis, and Granada facing off against Barcelona. That Deportivo Alaves game and Real Betis, that should be a real tasty one too. But I'm really excited about that Atletico Real Sociedad game. I think that should be real entertainment right there. So that is Spain for this weekend. We will move on to Germany. Let's take a look at what's going on in the Bundesliga. And just what a game there was today between Mönchengladbach and Mainz. A 2-2 draw, a Joe Scally goal for Mönchengladbach with only a few minutes remaining. Gets them the draw in this game. Wildly entertaining from start to finish. Both teams, not great starts to the season, but they played a great game, both sides. So the entertainment side was at least there for that one. Moving on to Saturday, we have a 5-game slate for Saturday. You have Augsburg facing off against Darmstadt. Then you got 2 teams in the Champions League right now. Both coming off losses, I believe. Dortmund might have got a win. I don't remember. But I know Union Berlin lost at the death against Braga at the Olympiastadion. But it will be Dortmund versus Union Berlin at the Signal Iduna Park in Dortmund. That should be wildly entertaining. That's a exciting game to look forward to this weekend. RB Leipzig face off against Bochum. Stuttgart, like I said, they seem to score 3, 4, 5 goals in each game, or they give up 3, 4, 5 goals in each game. So should be an intriguing matchup there. Werder Bremen face off against Hoffenheim. Hoffenheim having a pretty decent start to the season compared to what I thought they would be at. So we'll see if that can continue there. We move on to Sunday. Leverkusen hosts Cologne. Cologne not having a good start to the season at all. Not at all what I expected from them. Leverkusen, though, very, very good start for them. We'll see if Xabi Alonso can keep it up for them. Bayern Munich hosts Freiburg. Obviously, Harry Kane is the big factor in that game, as that everybody will be paying attention to him. And then you have Eintracht Frankfurt hosting off against Heidenheim, I should say. I expect Frankfurt to win that one quite easily. So finally, we will move on to Serie A. We had 2 matches today. You had Empoli and Udinese drawing 0-0. Nothing great to report about in that game. You had Lecce and Sassuolo in a 1-1 draw. Quite similar. Kind of just one of those Serie A games. They always seem to come around. So, moving on to Saturday, you have Inter Milan, the current top of the table team, facing off against Bologna. That should be an easy win for Inter Milan, but there are no easy wins in Serie A. Then you have the Turin derby, I should say. I was thinking about one of the teams in this derby, but it is Juventus against Torino. Juventus will be playing at home in this game. That should be an entertaining matchup, but I still expect Juventus to win this one. And then Genoa face off against AC Milan to close out your Saturday. And then to get to your Sunday, we have another 5-match slate. AC Monza, I should say, face off against Fiorentina. Monza kind of having a sneaky start to the season. Better than I expected. So I kind of expect them to come away with the victory in this one. Frosinone Calico face off against Hellas Verona. This game has 0-0 draw written all over it. Lazio face off against Atalanta. This might be the best game in Italy this weekend. I think both sides have a lot to prove, and I'm excited to watch that one. Cagliari face off against an AS Roma team that they haven't figured it out this year. Jose Mourinho has been very scrutinized to start this season. There were reports that they might already be looking to sack him this season and replacing him with Antonio Conte, which would be wild. But I would think that they'd get a victory here. But against the Claudio Ranieri side, this game has 0-0 draw written all over it. And then finally, you got the Scudetto winners, Napoli, facing off against Fiorentina. This is probably the number 2 game in Italy this weekend. Another quite entertaining matchup that I am just excited to see play out on the field. So given that's going to be it for Back of the Net today. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you stumbled across it, hit like, hit subscribe. Tell anybody you know if you stumbled across it and really enjoyed it, so you can spread the word about this channel. We'll be back on Monday for a recap of all these games. Any other major World Cup breaking news, happens. They award Saudi Arabia the 2034 World Cup on Saturday or Sunday. I'm sure I can conjure up another rant. So Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time for another episode of Back of the Net.